NASA's abandoned rubber room. Now, the term rubber room might bring to mind thoughts of some sort of old school mental facility or a cast aside movie title from the Saw film franchise, but in fact, it is actually the nickname given to the two emergency bunkers built by NASA for the Apollo program in the 1960s. In this video, we will be exploring the incredible features of the steel fortresses that sit to this day 40 feet beneath the Earth's surface. We'll be finding out whether or not the doomsdayers can book it out for a sweet apocalyptic getaway too. So, where are they at? The so-called rubber rooms are situated 40 feet below Launch Pad 39A and 39B at Kennedy Space Center Launch Complex in Florida. Unfortunately, 39B's rubber room featured a fair amount of lead paint, so that got cornered off faster than you can say Saturnism. That's the term for lead poisoning, by the way. Not someone that is obsessed with the sixth sphere from the sun, as wonderful as we think the ringed planet might be. So why did NASA need the rubber rooms? The bunkers were designed to be a safe refuge for up to 20 personnel for 24 hours following a rapid explosion of the Saturn V rocket, and when the usual evacuation methods would take too long. The catchy moniker rubber rooms come from a room located in the bunker complex, which is, unsurprisingly, lined with rubber for its shock-absorbing factor and is still in pristine condition, virtually untouched since the 60s. How does one get to the rubber rooms? This is the bit where things get a little silly, and you might not believe it, but it's a 200-foot water slide. To make sure people were fully protected from the potential force of the fully fueled Saturn V explosion happening up above, the force of that being 42 terajoules, that's 2/3 of the energy of the Hiroshima bomb. Powerful stuff. The bunker was located far below the Earth's surface. Personnel would drop down into the water slide through a hatch located at an opening on the launch pad called Level A, the ginormous structure that supported Saturn V. After a stealthy drop into the death-defying slide, a sprinkler system would activate, marking the start of some sort of zany amusement park for space nerds. In a matter of seconds, the slide goer would be plummeted down at great speed. In fact, while trialing out the bunker, one crew member even broke several bones bashing into the rubber panel at the end of the slide due to the sheer speed of their descent and the pool of water that had collected at the bottom. At the end of the risky ride sits the OG rubber room with walls lined with rubber over 2 feet thick for maximum shock absorption. From here, the crew would make their way into the dome-shaped blast room via a thick steel door that looks a bit like a bank vault. The door was then closed, creating an entirely sealed space for the crew to stay in until the coast was clear. Sealed spaces are notoriously bad for the old lungs, so in order to prevent death from rising CO2 levels in the air, a carbon dioxide scrubber was placed in the center of the room, which worked to clean the air and reduce CO2 levels. As well as this fancy contraption, the blast room features 20 seats to house personnel, arranged in a delightful panopticon of potential death. The floor to the blast room was another impressive feat of engineering. The whole thing floats on a series of 24 giant springs. Why? Just another measure to protect the inhabitants from the immense shockwaves coming from the launch pad above. The potential blast from the rocket could cause an acceleration of up to 75 Gs. That's short for gravitational constant, by the way. Ever been on one of those mega stomach-churning G-force rides that drop you vertically, make your knuckles turn white, and cause your nephew that insisted they wouldn't feel ill for riding on it 3 times in a row to projectile vomit onto your new suede Vans? Well, 75 Gs is a great deal more than one of those fun towers and their potential ramifications. In fact, That's 35 times the force of an uninhibited sneeze following the sniffing of ground pepper. That's 18 times the force of a harsh slap on the back. That's a little over the force of a Formula One crash, to really put it into perspective. Once you're in, how do you leave the rubber room? There are two exit routes. The primary exit is through a 366-meter-long tunnel, which is essentially an air duct that opens up at the perimeter of the launch pad. Another route was designed for emergency situations, an escape hatch located at the top of the dome. Good luck with your travels from the top of a giant steel dome, however. The hatch door has now thankfully been removed and filled in with concrete. What would the crew have to eat? Most importantly, let's talk snacks. Each bunker featured a great mound of 20 World War II-inspired lunchboxes loaded up with 3,000 calories worth of snacks. And what other unique features lie beneath the launch pads? It's a verifiable TARDIS down there. Not just rubber rooms and big steel domes, as impressive as they may be. On the west-facing side of the blast room, past the water slide and the iconic rubber room, sits the environmental control system room. This room produces clean air that is fed into the mobile launch platform. Another unique feature is the catacombs, where sound suppression water is pumped to various locations around the launch pad just before the main engine ignition. This system was engineered to shield the shuttle and its payloads from potential damage caused by the acoustic energy reverberating during liftoff. If only we could have our very own portable, sound-suppressing warm water helmets to submerge our head in when the car alarm down the street has been blaring for hours. Need inspiration for an Etsy store? There you have it. Next up, the Flame Detector Structures, FDS. This is a structure or device designed to redirect or disperse the flames, heat, and exhaust gases that are emitted by rocket engines. In the Apollo program, the necessity of a flame deflector significantly influenced the design of the Kennedy Space Center Launch Complex 39. NASA engineers opted for a two-way, wedged-shaped metal flame detector, standing at 13 meters tall and 15 meters wide, with a weight totaling 317 tons. That's a whale mother and its baby whale. That's the obelisk at Hatshepsut. That's really freaking heavy. Can you go for a guided tour or a quick getaway? The rubber rooms haven't been turned into Airbnbs or renovated hipster bars adorned with Edison light bulbs, despite their urban chic aesthetic. Following the conclusion of the Apollo era, the rubber rooms deteriorated with water collecting in the bunkers and exit tunnels, while various species of Florida wildlife found shelter within them. During the refurbishment of the launch pads for the Space Shuttle program, the bunkers were designated as abandoned in place, rather than being renovated alongside the pad above. In 2014, however, when NASA leased Pad A to SpaceX, the terms of the agreement stipulated that the rubber room, along with other historic sections of the pad, must be preserved for historical artifacts. If you ask very kindly and are associated with a reputable space program/space news provider, you might be able to get yourself a tour. But it's quite unlikely you'll get a whiff of the rubber room. While the launch pads are still very much in use, with SpaceX sending their Falcon 9 rocket carrying 23 Starlink internet satellites on March 23rd of this year, the rubber rooms that lie below have thankfully never had to hold any crew members captive. They are, however, a fascinating time capsule into the past, and an incredible display of engineering, and with a water slide so steep, so speedy, and so very expensive, it makes one question, how did NASA float that? With hydrogen bonds, that's how. Who knows, maybe sometime soon the crew from Astronomy Revelations will have their very own guided tour around the rubber room. If you've enjoyed this video, click to subscribe to our channel. It's a great deal safer than the journey to the rubber room, that's for sure.